So you've seen me draw on this channel, use EVA foam, paint, sew. Now get ready for the revival of another random hobby that I picked up in high school. It's crocheting, baby. So bear with me through this long drawn out explanation of what's going on here while you watch me mess around with this pixel chart here that ultimately becomes useless. The goal was to fulfill a dream of a littler teenage me by hand making something both nerdy and wearable while also quenching my current desire to work on something tactile that doesn't require too many brain cells. I did manage to work on something tactile, but I can confirm that it required way too many brain cells of me. But of course I had this idea while watching the newly animated show DanDaDan, which is an anime about a girl who believes in spirits and a boy who believes in aliens who become unlikely friends as a result of newfound superpowers and frequent interactions with both aliens and spirits. It's certainly one of those animes of all time. It's very enjoyable. I really like it. The art is beautiful, but I personally wouldn't cold turkey recommend it to someone who is just getting into anime or someone who isn't a fan of that flavor of humor. But when Okarun, one of the two main characters, goes into superpower mode, he gets this very cool tooth cowl thing. And of course, as every cosplayer does when they see a cool costume piece, they go, hey, I could make that. So I started out by making a useless pixel chart using the dimensions of a free cowl pattern that I had found online to try and help me get a rough idea of what this should look like. Of course, I did forget to check what weight of yarn that particular pattern was using. My guess is not medium or worsted weight yarn because, spoiler alert, what I ended up with is very, very large. But just for consistency, I am using a 4.5mm crochet hook for this project, and I fully intended to keep track of exactly what I was doing with the intent of creating an exact pattern for you all to be able to follow, but that did not work. So all I have for you in terms of tutorial is vibes. I'm going to do my absolute best to make it a replicable process so that you can be equipped to do this better than I did. That being said, going forward, I will be using quite a bit of crochet terminology. If you are unfamiliar with that, I apologize. This video is going to be a little wordy and maybe not make a lot of sense, but I hope you can enjoy the video anyways. Alright, so at the very bottom of the cowl, I did a rib stitch just to draw the bottom in a little closer. It is totally unnecessary. A cowl does not need this. It will keep you just as warm if you don't include it, but it is a sort of fun little detail that adds a little visual interest and texture. So to make a rib stitch, you start with a slip knot, and then you're going to chain 9 or chain as wide as you wish your rib stitch to be. Then turn, and in the second loop from the hook, half double crochet all the way to the end of the row. And then, as always, at the end of the row, chain 1. Also, you don't have to do this in half double crochet. It will work with single crochet as well. I just like the added thickness. So when you turn and start your second row, in order to get the rib stitch effect, you're not going to pick up both loops like you normally do when you crochet. You are just picking up the back loop and doing a half double crochet or single crochet in that. Half double crochet all the way down the row, chain 1, and turn. And then you're just repeating that process until you have something that is the desired length of your cowl. And now I've lost all of my viewers who don't crochet. I'm so sorry. If it helps, there is a lot of cat footage in this video, real, not clickbait, so stick around if you want to see cats, I guess. Alright, so back to the crocheting, folks. I made my rib stitch border to be long enough for 121 stitches to go across the length of it. Spoiler alert, that is way too big. You are not going to want to do that. Whichever part of my brain decided that that was the right course of action was dumb. Honestly, I could have gone somewhere closer to the vicinity of 80, but I personally would just recommend measuring it on yourself and working from there. Cowls are a very forgiving crochet project. The only thing that you need to be worried about is that you're going to want to pick a number of stitches and remember that number of stitches, and you're going to want it to be an odd number of stitches because the center of the front of the cowl is going to be this single stitch gap between the two front teeth. So I proceeded to half double crochet about 14 rows, no increases or decreases, just a lot of watching Gyeongsung Creature and Critical Role because I am a multi-dimensional woman with many interests and very little self-produced serotonin. I don't think you need to do 14 rows. I like a cowl that bunches a little bit around the neck but isn't too constricting. I didn't have to worry about the constricting part of things because once again, mine is really, really big. I think this is one of the try it yourself situations. If you like a lot of bunches, make this part longer. longer. If you don't care for the bunches, do fewer rows. And now we get to the part that for me turned this project from a silly little crochet thingy to take my mind off of things to a numbers hell, where I've never been more grateful for stitch markers in my life, and also had to undo and redo a ton of things about 100 times. Also, the part where I explain why the cowl is a flat rectangle and not a ring as one might expect a cowl to be. Enter the mosaic stitch. This is a very cool technique for adding multiple colors into your project. When you're doing the mosaic stitch with two colors, you're alternating one row one color and the next row the next. But unlike traditional crochet, when you're doing mosaic crochet, you're working only from right to left and not turning your work as you progress. Also, at the end of each row, you will finish and cut the ends. Doing a mosaic stitch creates an inverted version of what you're making on the front if you do it nicely, but I'm pretty sure that means there's a way you can probably flip your work and avoid cutting the yarn tails as long as you invert your mosaic pattern chart as well. I haven't tried that, so we're not doing that in this video. Okay, so mosaic stitch tutorial time. I preface this by saying there are definitely way better and more clearly filmed tutorials for these stitches elsewhere, but I'm still gonna go through what I did. The mosaic stitch starts with 2 foundational rows. The first foundational row for us is going to be the last row of half double crochets. So finish that row with a slip knot, and then at the start of your next row, you're gonna start with a border stitch. That's where you pull your yarn through both loops, then pull yarn through that loop like you're making a slip stitch, and then in the same stitch doing 1 single crochet. Once your border stitch is done, much like the rib stitch, you're going to go almost all the way across the row doing single crochet, not half double crochet, single crochet into the back loop only. The reason for single crochet is because a mosaic stitch doubles up your yarn layers just by how it works, so the final result will already be pretty thick without you working in half double crochet. And of course, in the very last stitch, you're going to do a regular single crochet through both loops and finish your end. Now with the black or whatever alternate color you are using, you're going to do a border stitch, and then we're going to begin mosaicing. So for every pixel you want black, you're going to double crochet into the front loop of the first back row, and for every pixel you want white, you're going to single crochet into the back loop of the white row. In my case, this was border stitch, 38 double crochet into black, 1 back loop only single crochet into white, 5 double crochet into black, and then repeating that 1 back loop only and 5 double crochet 6 more times before doing 1 last back loop only, and then ending the row in only double crochets till the very last stitch, where you do a single crochet. If I remade the diagram for the teeth, I would probably have made the teeth 4 stitches wide or even 3 stitches wide, and also not have them decrease so quickly, because looking at Okarun, he has a lot of really long narrow teeth and they don't really decrease in size very drastically. Unfortunately, because of my mistakes, this is where you would need to do a little bit of math and stitch counting for yourself, depending on the shape and size you want the teeth to be in your cowl. Split that odd number of stitches that you decided worked for you in half and divide the teeth evenly on either side of that center line. Again, I apologize, this video is very vibes based and that I didn't really have the time to perfect a crochet pattern before posting this video, but on the other hand, cowls are very forgiving. If anyone is interested in a fully written and diagrammed tutorial where I properly size this, it would take me a bit of time and effort, which I am unable to commit to at the moment, but if enough people ask for it, maybe I can pull something together after the holidays are over, because turns out, who knew, but the holidays are a lot. Okay, so once you finish and snip that row, moving on to the next row in white, wherever you have a double crochet from the previous row, you're going to have a weird gap or pocket because you basically skipped an entire row. So for anywhere that you are going to be making a single crochet, or for any pixel that isn't the color that you're currently working with, you're going to single crochet, not just hooking into the back loop of the black row, but also into the loop farthest away from you in the corresponding stitch of the white row. This helps to make sure that the pattern on the inside of your cowl is the exact inverse of the pattern that you have on the front. I did not catch all the stitches properly. I don't care too much. I'm not planning on trying to invert this cowl, so So just with that in mind, if you don't do it perfectly, it's fine. Your pattern isn't going to fall apart or anything like that. Your reverse side just won't be as pretty. And from there, it's just counting and making sure you're always working with the correct double crochet or single crochet in the right spot, and making sure you're picking up loops with matching stitches in the different rows. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy, and I'm saying that as someone that you are literally watching on video, actively learning how to mosaic crochet for this project. The first few rows I had to undo and redo because I kept miscounting my stitches, but once I got to the second row of teeth, it took a few hours to get through, and it wouldn't have taken that long if I didn't make this thing ridiculously large. Also, learning to do a mosaic crochet stitch opens up a whole world of tapestry and pixel art crochet, and suddenly you have a brand new board in your Pinterest collection that is pixel charts that you want to try making someday. In terms of how much yarn I used, it's a very doable project. For my cowl, I used a little bit over 1 full skein of black medium weight Red Heart Super Saver yarn, which is 364 yards or 333 meters, and then in white I used about half a skein of the same weight and brand. The only reason I bought 3 packs of each is because they were cheaper that way, and I like to tell lies to myself and say, oh, it's worth the bulk discount because I'll find a use for it someday. That in mind, my project was way too big. You could probably cut it down to about 2/3 or even half of the yarn I used, depending on how big or small you want to make your cowl. Once I was done with the teeth section of things, I just went back to normal half double crochets for 2 rows to create a little border at the top. Originally, I was planning on doing a small second row of the rib stitch crochet to attach to the top, but it was already getting very tall, so I decided in the end to skip that step. And then you're done. That's where I finished my cowl, so now you can weave in your ends and sew the 2 halves together. Oh, no, not like, no. Everybody turn away, this is terrible, don't. And that's the cowl. But of course I can't be an Okarun without a little turbo granny. I wanted to make a little cat bonnet and scarf that looks like a little white lucky cat for my cat. So for the bonnet part, I just followed the incredibly straightforward and easy to follow tutorial made by Cat Ventures Crochet for her Figaro frog hat. But instead of adding frog details, I made little triangles for ears as well as a triangle scarf kerchief. I don't have a lucky coin just on hand, so I cut an oblong shape out of a tan piece of paper to look like Turbo Granny's coin. And I really thought I had a little gold bell laying around somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so instead I used this fancy gold button. But with those final details, it is time for the reveal. It's too big. I'm so sorry. Oh. I'm so sorry. Oh.
I think that's about all you can get.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'll be the first to admit there are a couple things wrong with this. Number one, it is just way too big. Clearly, I forgot how crocheting works, and I clipped it with a hair clip in the back so that it's a little bit closer to my face, and it's still not that close. I also wish I had made these teeth thinner, so they're 5 stitches wide. I think they should have been 4, maybe even 3 wide. And I think if it had more tall ones and thinner going back, it would have looked a lot more identifiably Okarun. But you know, maybe not. Also, in a very predictable series of events, my cat did not enjoy wearing the Turbo Granny hat that I so lovingly made for him. So in the interest of not making him suffer, because I don't like to do that, we had his stunt double Frumpkin on standby, and I think he made a very great stand-in. Even though Hawkins bailed on his role partway through the shot, he was still very fairly compensated with many treats afterwards. Was it entirely useless, and will I never be able to put it on him again? Yes. But other than that, it was really nice to revive an old hobby, also learn a new thing about that hobby. On the plus side, I don't mind the length too much. It's very warm, even like this. This area is incredibly toasty. I will probably wear it out and about. I mean, I'm gonna look edgy and like a nerd, but life is short and joy is fleeting. But thank you so much for coming along with me on this adventure. I do not foresee crocheting becoming a significant part of this channel, as much as I did want to be able to have patterns to gift you guys at the end of this. That just... But on the other hand, I also thought I would never be doing any crochet at all on this channel, and here I am. So I guess at the end of the day, all we can say is, who knows? Not me.